Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Courtney Ryan, and we're going to be reacting to another TikTok today. I'm not going to say anything else, we're just going to get straight into it, and then we're going to reconvene, and I'll tell you what I think. So let's get started.
I think the ultimate thing, if I can do a little psychoanalysis, that might be preventing someone like you from attaining your dream girl is you have this...
Can we take a moment? What is she wearing? Is this like a costume thing?
This block where you think so much about body count, so much about her being a high value woman.
So you're saying I'm going in with what? Too much expectations?
I don't even think it's expectations. I think it's judgment. A little like too much judgment instead of taking into account all these other things. You're focused on these like minuscule things, and you're
minuscule.
I mean,
body
you're just
count?
you're not taking. You're just saying body count. That's like so physical. Like you're not.
You're focused too much on the past too. You're not really focused as much
present.
Here's what's so funny to me. I think women are unaccustomed to hearing men communicate and articulate their preferences, standards, and boundaries. Women are the queens of going for exactly what they want. You guys have laundry lists of criteria that a guy needs to meet.
Okay, I don't think this one is as crazy as some of the ones I've reacted to in the past. I don't think anyone freaked out or overreacted or handled themselves in a way that was maybe not the greatest. So that's a good start. I personally find it really helpful to watch men and women have these conversations just because I think it's interesting to see what different people think and maybe how they're coming to that conclusion. Does it always make sense? No, it doesn't, and I think we've learned that along the way, but interesting nonetheless. So I have a couple of points I want to talk about today based off of this specific video. So the first thing I want to talk about is that you are allowed to have standards. You're allowed to have preferences and standards in dating just as women are, and you absolutely should. I personally don't think that there's anything wrong with not wanting to be with someone who has slept with a bunch of people, referencing the video here. Say what you want, but I do think that it can reveal some things about you, your morals, your values, your self-respect. I know that that's subjective and that looks different to different people, but you should want to be with someone who shares those things with you and is kind of on the same page with you about that. And if you're a guy who, isn't promiscuous, you're not sleeping around a lot, that's something that you really value also in another person, well, it makes sense why you would not want to be with a woman who had slept with 100 men, right? I think that's fair. And of course, you can make the argument that it's judging someone based on their past. That's absolutely factual and true here. People change, and I realize that, but the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. There is a reason why they run background checks when you interview for a job, and there's a reason why they look at your resume to see your credentials and your prior work history, right? We'll just leave it at that. But going back to the standards and preferences thing here, which are different things and should not be used interchangeably. I've done an entire video about that. If you haven't seen it, go watch it when you're done with this one. But I think as long as you're realistic about what you're asking for and you're holding yourself to those same standards that you're requesting from a potential partner, there really isn't an issue. And in this case, elaborating on that realistic point, there are plenty of women out there who haven't slept with a ton of people or have crazy body counts. And I think when you talk to women who do have high body counts or who have been a little bit more promiscuous or that's not something that they care about as much, they always seem to make you seem like you're being unrealistic when you say that you want this in a partner. But the reality is that there are far more things that are way more unrealistic than that. And even some examples off the top of my head here, only 14.5% of men are 6 feet or above. The median income in the US is $54,000. So when girls say they want a man making 6 figures or a millionaire, well, they are quite literally asking for tiny percentages of men, and a millionaire would be a fraction of a percent of a man. So again, we all have preferences, we all have standards. There are far more unrealistic things out there than wanting to be with someone who shares morals and values as you, which is important. The next thing I want to talk about are double standards. So I think many women tend to get a little bit upset or triggered when they hear a guy discuss his preferences in women because they're not used to hearing it, of course. And I know these girls in the clip didn't act out or lash out or seem triggered or anything, so I'm not talking about them specifically. In this particular clip, I thought that they handled themselves fine. I don't know what the rest of the interview looked like because I haven't seen it, but just this minute-long clip, I didn't really see anything crazy. But I have seen other videos where a man has said what he wants or what he's looking for in a woman, and then when a woman hears that she doesn't meet those requirements or credentials, she'll get really upset or tell him that he's being judgmental or shallow or whatever it is. But you don't typically hear women who meet the credentials or who meet the requirements or who haven't slept around with a ton of people getting angry or triggered when they hear something like that. They just be like, oh, okay, that's a fine thing to ask for. Someone can be a great individual but not necessarily be great for you. And I think expressing that you want a partner who has morals that align with yours isn't really being judgmental at all. An example here outside of body count, just to put the emotions out of it a little bit, I don't drink, so I don't want to be with someone who goes out and parties every weekend or makes alcohol their entire life. And that's not me being judgmental, that's me being honest and realistic about who I'm compatible with. And the matter of the fact is that I'm not compatible with a guy who's going out every weekend and drinking because I don't enjoy doing that and I don't drink. And again, that's not being judgmental when someone doesn't align with you or someone wouldn't be romantically compatible with you. Again, someone can be a really great individual on their own, but they might not be great with you. And I don't know what this guy said in the rest of the clip, but in this one specifically, he didn't say that women who have high body counts are like the scum of the earth or anything like that. He just said that he doesn't want to be with them, which I think is fair. I think women, more so than men, tend to be very vocal about what their preferences and standards in men are. And you could argue that some of the things could be considered even more shallow, like height, for example, because that's something that a person can't change about themselves. It's just the way they are. You know, when you're looking at things like body count, those are decisions and choices that you often make for yourself. And it's not something that you were just like born with, you know? And I really think that social media and dating apps have kind of conditioned us to prioritize these shallow attributes because it's really all you're able to see a lot of the time. You don't get to experience the entirety of a human being and you're whittled down to a few photos on your phone screen. And you can call it shallow, but it kind of just is what it is when it comes to being online. And the truth is that we all have an idea of traits or characteristics that we'd like our ideal partner to have. Men and women both do this. But I think we also need to remember that men and women often tend to value different things in dating, and that's okay. Clearly, there are far more important things to consider than what someone looks like on the outside, hence wanting to be with someone who shares similar morals and values as you. And I'll also say this, as a devil's advocate for all the men watching, a lot of you guys get mad when I bring women on my channel when they talk about their preferences in men. I understand some of it might be a little bit warranted, don't get me wrong. Miss Pagani VC, I'm looking at you. But when you're asking someone about their ideal preferences and the ideal things that they're looking for, they're probably going to say some crazy stuff. But that's just another reason why I think it's so important to understand what you're asking for or how rare it is what you're asking for, and really honestly just to be realistic about what you're looking for in a partner. Because I do think a lot of people, women specifically, have a long list of things that they want. As women have continued to become more successful, more financially independent, their credentials and what they require in a man has also become a lot more picky. And it's getting to a point where it's becoming very unattainable and very unrealistic. I've done plenty of videos about that, so I'm not going to get into that here today. But the best advice I can give you is to honestly stop worrying about people's preferences who just don't align with you. You shouldn't have to convince someone to like you, first of all. Second of all, some people are just delusional and will continue to hold themselves back in life and growth by being so picky about things that truly don't matter and prioritizing the wrong things. But honestly, let them. It's not your job to fix people. And I think, of course, we can have these conversations and try to deconstruct things and talk through them together and figure out the why behind them. But at the same time, you shouldn't want to force someone to be with you who doesn't align with you, right? So I do think it's incredibly helpful and beneficial to have these conversations and deconstruct why we think the way that we do and how we've come to these conclusions and what we're looking for as men and women. I think it's very different, so it's nice to hear from the opposite sex and just have a conversation around it. But I think it's important to keep in mind that you're not for everyone, and that's okay. I think a lot of men have realized this, or at least I've seen a lot of you in my comments, express this to me of like, you've been rejected, you understand. I think a lot of women have not experienced that rejection or that not meeting a man's credentials, because in the past, men would just kind of settle for anyone and haven't really been vocal about their preferences or their standards when it comes to women. I think a lot of women have a really hard time around this topic specifically because our society just sold such a lie about female empowerment and being sexually liberated, and sleeping with more people makes you, liberated and it's empowering, when in reality, it's actually the complete opposite. I think women are finally realizing that this is not a positive thing to be doing, and it's not a helpful thing. It's not good for your mental health or your physical well-being or the way that you view men and the way that men and women view each other. I just think as a society, something is finally clicking. And I've mentioned this in past videos I've done before about feminism, but I think there are a lot of women now who are speaking out against this and who are sharing their, experiences. So yeah, I think this is a conversation we're seeing a lot more now because people are finally realizing that they were sold a lie. And that can be a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people. And I think it's important to have grace with people and be kind, but at the same time, we need to understand that our actions have consequences. Our actions have results that aren't always positive. Sometimes that might mean someone doesn't necessarily want to be with you. And that's okay. Again, you're not for everyone, and that's okay. But it's really important for you guys to make sure that you are with a woman who has life goals, morals, and values, as I mentioned a million times, that align with yours. That is quite literally the foundation that your relationship is built upon. You're not being judgmental. You're not being shallow. You're finding someone that you are compatible with. And I just don't see an issue with that. And again, I think if you're being picky about the things that truly matter, and you're being realistic and holding yourself to those same standards, there should be no issue. So I would love to know down in the comments what you think about this whole topic, whether it be body count, standards, and preferences. Would love to have you guys share some of your stories or experiences below, or just honestly your opinion. But all in all, the answer here is not to get angry at the opposite sex. We all have standards and preferences. Some of us are more delusional than others. It is what it is. Whatever. I just don't think we get anywhere by being bitter or hateful or resentful. And I think we all need to come to the conclusion, again, you're not for everybody, and that's okay. You can't change someone's mind. You shouldn't have to. You can't change people. It's not your job to fix someone or to change their mind. Some people will just be in their little delusion land, and that's on them. I don't want anybody being bitter or hateful or resentful down in my comment section. That's not the space that I want to create here. I want this to be productive, and I don't think that being hateful is productive. I think there's always something to learn, which is why I show you guys these videos and I react to them and we kind of break it down and talk about some different points that I think stand out within the clip. So if you guys have any videos you want me to react to in the future, you can always send them my way or tag me in them. I love seeing what you guys send me, and it's always entertaining to react. So if you haven't already, be sure to follow me over on Instagram at Courtney Christine Ryan. I love connecting with all of you guys over on there as well. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.